This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Africa's vaccine challenge, leaders to meet WHO and WTO chiefs to discuss local production. Iran suspects Israel is to blame for the blackout at a nuclear facility. And vote counting underway in Chad as President Idris Deby seeks a sixth term. Hello and a very warm welcome to Africa Live on CGTN. I'm Lindy Mntogana in Nairobi. Also ahead this hour. In business, why a potential $1 billion standoff looms over the recent Suez Canal blockage. And in sports, 1970 Africa Cup of Nations champions Sudan make a return to the competition after 10 years. In our top story this hour, Libyan Prime Minister Abdul Hamid Dbeibeh is on his first visit to Turkey since taking office last month. Accompanying him is a high-level delegation that includes 5 deputy prime ministers and 14 cabinet ministers. The visit is expected to focus on cooperation in the energy and health sectors. Also on the agenda is for Turkish companies to resume activities that were halted because of the conflict in Libya. Well, let's get to the very latest on this. We're now joined by CGTN's Michal Bardavid, live from Istanbul. Michal, first of all, what is the latest on this visit?
Well, the Libyan representatives in Turkey are here with a very large delegation, of course. The first meetings will take place between ministry-level officials. Turkey's Ministry of Industry and Technology will meet with the Libyan Minister of Industry and Mines and Libyan Minister of Higher Education and Scientific Research. Later in the day, the official welcoming ceremony of Prime Minister Abdul Hamid Dbeibeh will be held. Then he will hold a one-on-one meeting with Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. At 14 GMT, a significant first will be held as President Recep Tayyip Erdogan will co-chair the first meeting of the Turkey-Libya High-Level Strategic Cooperation Council in Ankara together with Libyan Prime Minister Abdul Hamid Dbeibeh. The two leaders are expected to sign many agreements. They will hold a ceremony for these agreements, and then they will hold a joint press conference where we'll have the details of these meetings. The day will end with an official dinner.
And of course, Michal, this is an important meeting in terms of establishing what Turkey's main interests are at this time with regards to Libya. We know, of course, Turkey was heavily involved militarily in the Libyan conflict over the past year. So where do Turkey's interests lie at this point, and especially with regards to how Egypt felt about Turkey's involvement in Libya now that there is a new government in the country?
Well, the two countries, of course, have a lot of interests, mutual interests at this time. The statements that were made before the visit emphasized that health and energy would be focused on in terms of agreements. But of course, security cooperation is also critical for both countries. Turkey has previously signed a military cooperation accord with the GNA, and military advisors had been sent together with trainers to Tripoli in 2019. Now, analysts believe that the size of the Libyan delegation here in Turkey at this moment kind of shows the importance that is placed by Tripoli on its relations with Ankara at this moment. Now, one of the most critical areas of mutual interest at this time is also energy, of course, and energy in the Eastern Mediterranean specifically. Now, prior to the visit, Dbeibeh has said that economic deals between the GNA and Turkey that were signed earlier should remain in place. Now, in 2019, Ankara also signed a maritime agreement accord with the GNA in the Eastern Mediterranean. The deal received a lot of criticism, a lot of conflict was created between Turkey and Greece over the rights in the Eastern Mediterranean. And Athens has called for the cancellation of this agreement just on Tuesday as it reopened its embassy in Libya after 7 years. Now, Egypt, of course, is also in a valuable position when it comes to the Eastern Mediterranean, and Turkish officials have approached Egypt recently trying to find common ground when it comes to mutual interest and potentially normalize ties. Now, there was a recent statement made today, just a short while ago, from the Egyptian Foreign Ministry. They have stated that they are eager to mend ties with Turkey and that they appreciate Turkey's recent actions. So if Turkey finds a way to mend ties with Egypt and even sign a potential maritime agreement with Cairo, it could change the balance in the Eastern Mediterranean, which is causing a lot of problems for Turkey, together with the European Union at this time as well. So also, Turkish officials have stressed that signing a deal with Turkey would mean adding a larger maritime jurisdiction zone for Cairo, so it could potentially be a win-win situation, and that is what Turkey is stressing at this point.
Indeed, a lot of mutual interests that need to be carefully negotiated. Thank you so much, Michal Bardavid, reporting there live from Istanbul. Now, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov is in fact arriving in Cairo to meet with Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry. Lavrov is expected to discuss trade, economic, cultural and humanitarian issues with his counterpart. And this is in accordance with the 2018 Russia-Egypt Comprehensive Partnership and Strategic Cooperation Agreement. The leaders are also expected to discuss Libya. Well, for more on this, let's now speak to CGTN's Adel Al-Makhroui. He's following the developments in Cairo and joins us now live. This, of course, is a significant high-level meeting. Adel, what is the latest?
Well, Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov comes to Cairo for the first official visit since 2019, April 2019. It's been almost 2 years exactly since his last visit. He comes announcing that he sees very promising horizons for the future of ties between Russia and Egypt. As you've said, there is a lot on the negotiation plate that he will be discussing with Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry and the Egyptian President. Regional issues are primarily the concern, beside, of course, the bilateral military and trade ties between both countries. They will be investigating options to push and move the Palestinian crisis from the stagnation it is in. Also, Libya is a very crucial topic to be discussed, as well as Egypt is hoping to involve Russia to mediate in the Nile talks, through which Egypt has announced that it has reached a dead end last week. And therefore, the collaboration between Cairo and Moscow is believed to be very beneficial on numerous levels, politically, economically, and of course when it comes to regional issues.
And Adel, the timing of this visit is rather interesting. On the one hand, you have Libya and Turkey holding high-level talks, and of course now Egypt and Russia. And as you mentioned, more than likely, Libya will form a crucial discussion point in both scenarios. But Adel, where has Russia's focus been when it comes to the situation in Libya? And would you say Russia and Egypt's interests in Libya are aligned?
Yes, Egypt and Russia's interests in Libya have been quite aligned for many years. Since the country was divided into two rival governments, Egypt and Russia both supported the eastern government, the eastern-based Libyan National Army led by Khalifa Haftar, and the eastern-based parliament. So this is where the alliance has been for years. But now that Libya has crossed that division, at least as far as it seems so far, they have both also endorsed the government, the interim unity government of Prime Minister Abdelhamid Dbeibeh. And therefore the timing of Dbeiba's visit in Turkey and Egypt and Russia meeting doesn't seem to be sort of a challenge or that an indication that the rivalry might still exist. They both have clearly declared their support to the unity government, hoping that it will lead Libya to general elections by the end of the year. They have both also stressed on the necessity to unify Libya's security forces, to have a unified interior ministry and a unified Libyan military. So in that regard, politically, they are aligned, and they're also aligned with their support to the Dbeiba's government and support Libya to come over this division as it finally has and try to reach general elections by all means. This is the prime concern, and the collaboration between the two have been quite strong in that regard. They have almost had identical approaches toward the Libyan crisis.
Thank you so much for that. Adel Al-Makhraoui joining us there live from Cairo. Let's go to Chad now, where vote counting is underway after a weekend presidential election. Incumbent President Idris Deby is running for a sixth term in office, an attempt to extend his three-decade rule. He seized power back in 1990 in an armed rebellion. Now, among Deby's six rivals in this election is former Prime Minister Albert Pahimi Padake. However, several leading opponents have boycotted the race, including Saleh Kebzabo, the 2016 runner-up. In 2018, Deby enforced a new constitution that could allow him to stay in power until 2033, even as it reinstated term limits. Protests against Deby's administration have mounted since February. They've been spearheaded by a coalition of NGOs, labor unions and opposition political parties. Demonstrators are calling for a change in political leadership and an end to social and economic injustices. The Election Commission has until April 25th to announce provisional results. Meanwhile, in Benin, the nation has also begun its vote counting process following a presidential poll that has been boycotted by some opposition parties. President Patrice Talon is vying for a second term in office, with critics accusing him of purposefully barring his opponents from the race. He is running against two candidates, Alassane Soumanu, who was a minister under former President Thomas Boniyaya, and Corentin Kahue, a veteran politician. Protests leading up to the Sunday vote left at least two people dead as security forces clashed with demonstrators. Among the complaints is President Talon backing out of a pledge to serve only one term and an alleged crackdown on his opponents. Provisional results for the first round of the election are expected by Tuesday. Well, African leaders are set to hold a two-day virtual meeting coordinated from Addis Ababa to discuss expanding vaccine manufacturing on the continent. Speakers will include DRC President Felix Tshisekedi, who is the current chair of the African Union, South Africa's Cyril Ramaphosa, Rwanda's Paul Kagame, Senegal's Macky Sall, the head of the World Health Organization, Tedros Ghebreyesus, and WTO chief Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala are also expected to participate. Well, let's get to you more now on this high-level gathering. I'm now joined by CGTN's Girum Chala, live for us in Addis Ababa. Some serious names on the roster there, Girum. Tell us more about what we can expect on the agenda of this meeting on vaccine production.
Africa's vaccine manufacturing for a healthy future is a sort of the theme of this meeting that is going to take place under the coordination of Addis Ababa virtually. And as you've said, the current chairperson of the union itself, Felix Tshisekedi, DRC President Paul Kagame of Rwanda, and among others, are participating in this important meeting. As you understand, Africa is struggling at the moment to garner as much vaccination as possible compared to the amount of people that we have in this continent. And the African Union finds it very important, also the member states, that Africa needs to develop a capacity to manufacture vaccinations in the continent, even develop it on its own. So the most important topic here is that Africa needs to coordinate this matter and execute it as soon as possible so that economies can return to normalcy, lives can be saved under the continental effort itself. So we're expecting resolutions in this regard as soon as the end of this meeting.
Now, Girum, you have been speaking to the Africa CDC about the COVID-19 vaccine situation in Africa, and particularly about calls for urgent support. What does the Africa CDC see as the biggest challenge in this respect?
Well, the World Bank said Africa needs $12 billion to finance its vaccination provision. Now, you understand that finance is the most important issue. African Union, Africa CDC has been also saying that Africa needs from 8 to 10 billion to purchase and also perhaps, distribute vaccinations, administer vaccinations throughout the continent. So finance is what the Africa CDC sees as the biggest challenge of the continent, even now when it is trying to execute the plan of developing and also manufacturing COVID-19 vaccinations in the continent. So the World Bank has been suggesting that developed nations must support Africa, and Africa CDC is saying that both multilaterally and bilaterally, member states should work to garner as much finance as possible so that the plan of perhaps manufacturing these vaccinations within the continent can be a reality. So member states, now that they are holding meetings under this important theme, they are also expected to make calls, important calls of garnering finance and even know-how to the international community so that this plan can be successful at the end of the day.
Kirom Chala, thank you so much joining us there live from Addis Ababa. Now, turning to international news, Iran has blamed Israel for Sunday's incident at the Natanz nuclear facility and vowed to retaliate. Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif said the Zionists wanted to take revenge because of Iran's progress towards lifting sanctions. Iran says the blackout at the facility was an act of nuclear terrorism. Media in Israel have also said it was behind the attack. CGTN's Timothy Ulrich reports.
President Hassan Rouhani unveiling Iran's latest centrifuges for enriching uranium on Saturday, marking National Nuclear Technology Day. Officials say they're the country's most advanced, able to make the process 50 times faster than with its first model. But celebrations were cut short after officials on Sunday morning reported a blackout at the Natanz nuclear facility.
We had an incident with some of the electrical supply grid that is linked to the enrichment facility. The electricity supply was cut off.
A statement later in the day read out on official TV made clear this was much more than just an issue with the grid.
Following the incident at the Natanz nuclear facility this morning, the head of the Atomic Energy Department called this a terrorist move and emphasized the necessity of response by international bodies, including the IAEA, to this act of nuclear terrorism.
Iran's nuclear chief Ali Akbar Salehi also says Tehran has a right to take action against those responsible. A report in the New York Times quoting two anonymous intelligence officials briefed on the incident says it was an act of sabotage carried out by Israel. And Israel's own public radio earlier also quoted two intelligence officials who said the blackout was caused by a cyber attack launched by the country's Mossad security service. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Sunday his country is facing an uphill battle with Iran, but did not mention any attack on Natanz.
The fight against Iran's nuclearization and its praxis, the fight against the Iranian nuclearization, the fight against the Iranian army is a massive task.
Tensions between Tel Aviv and Tehran remain high. Iran said last week one of its cargo ships in the Red Sea was attacked and pointed to Israel as the culprit. The two countries have been struggling against each other through proxies in conflicts from Syria to Yemen. All this against the backdrop of ongoing meetings in Vienna between signatories of the 2015 Iran nuclear deal that Iran staunchly opposes. The attack on Natanz could further complicate the diplomacy and ratchet up tensions in the region. Timothy Ulrich, CGTN.
Now, this apparent act of sabotage comes as the U.S. Secretary of Defense visits Israel. Our correspondent Stephanie Freed has more on this from Tel Aviv.
U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin's Israel visit kicked off with a meeting with his Israeli counterpart, Defense Minister Benny Gantz. Austin is the first Biden administration official to visit Israel since the new president was sworn in January. On the agenda of the U.S. Defense Secretary's two-day visit, discussions about Iran, regional security challenges, and continued U.S.-Israel cooperation. The meetings in Israel come as the U.S. contemplates returning to a 2015 nuclear deal with Iran that was severed by the Trump administration. Israel opposes a return to that deal. Defense Secretary Austin and Defense Minister Gantz discussed maintaining Israel's military edge in the region.
As a major strategic partner for the United States, our bilateral relationship with Israel in particular is central to regional stability and security in the Middle East. and I pledge to continue close consultations in order to ensure Israel's qualitative military edge and to strengthen Israel's security.
Stephanie Freed, CGTN, Tel Aviv.
Well, time now for a short break. Here's what's still ahead on the program. Coming up, Cyclone Seroja leaves a trail of destruction as it batters parts of Western Australia. And a look at Sudan, 2 years after the overthrow of President Omar al-Bashir.
How will your world change today? What happens here? What happens there? Or what you make happen for yourself? If it matters to you, it matters to us too. Your stories are the stories that need to be told. Africa Live. Find your voice.
I try to not let it affect me, but there are days when it does. I'm a human being, and to see patients in a hospital bed and their family members are not there, there's no one there to hold their hand, that human touch, you know?
I just hope everyone can remember that the situation is not permanent and that everything will get better eventually.
Right, let's start in Australia, where tropical cyclone Seroja has left a trail of destruction after slamming into towns in the west of the country over the weekend. The powerful cyclone swept through Indonesia last week, leaving at least 177 people dead. Earlier, we spoke with our correspondent Greg Navarro in Sydney for the latest.
Well, I can tell you that the now ex-tropical storm has actually made it back out to sea. It made landfall along the Western Australia coast last night. As it did, it was a Category 3 cyclone at this point, leaving, as you mentioned, a trail of devastation and destruction, with winds gusting up to 170 kilometers an hour. The hardest hit town, the tourist town of Kalbarri, which is a population of about, say, 1,400 people, if that, and it's about 500 to 600 kilometers north of Perth. We're told that about 70% of the structures there, that means homes and businesses, received some sort of damage. About 30% of that number were actually completely destroyed. Roofs torn off of buildings over and over again, including homes. We're even hearing stories of fish being deposited on people's lawns a fair way away from the ocean there. About 70%, as I mentioned, of the town's structures there had suffered some type of damage. At least one man reportedly dead in this. He was apparently working on some power lines when that happened. We're told that power, by the way, has been knocked out for about 20,000 people across several communities. The state's premier is urging people to have a little bit of patience as crews try to get into some of those areas. But the problem at this point, assessing the damage, is a very difficult task because they simply haven't been able to get to all the places they need to. One thing officials are stressing in all this, it's rare to see a weather event make landfall with the kind of intensity that this particular storm had. They're also quite amazed that the most destructive cyclone of the season to make landfall in West Australia didn't cause more deaths and more injuries.
Sudan has been marking 2 years since the fall of former President Omar al-Bashir's regime. As Wilkista Nyabo reports, it has been 2 years of change for both the people of the North African nation and for Bashir and his close allies.
2 years after his fall from grace, Sudan's former longtime ruler Omar al-Bashir now finds himself in a different situation. His was a rapid transition from the presidential palace to a prison and later to a court in a cage. He was not only being pursued by local courts, he faced charges by the International Criminal Court for crimes against humanity in the Darfur region.
The ICC has outstanding arrest warrants against Mr. Omar al-Bashir, Mr. Ahmed Haroun, Mr. Abdel Rahim Mohammed Hussein, and Mr. Abdallah Banda Abakar Nourain. And these suspects are still wanted for the atrocity crimes listed in their ICC warrants of arrest. They must all face justice without further delay.
It is not just Bashir who is now living a new normal. Change has been sweeping across the North African nation. The new government under Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok has been seeking to establish new alliances in the region. One key development is the normalization of ties with Israel in October last year.
I want to just congratulate all of you. The State of Israel and the Republic of Sudan have agreed to make peace. This is for many, many years. They've been at odds, to put it nicely, and to normalize their relations. This will be the third country where we're doing this, and we have many, many more coming. They're coming at us hot and heavy. In the coming weeks, they will meet to negotiate cooperation agreements. You saw that happen with UAE and Bahrain recently in agriculture, technology, aviation.
An Israeli delegation will leave to Sudan in the coming days to complete the agreement.
Shortly afterwards, the United States removed Sudan from its list of state sponsors of terrorism. On the economic front, Sudan is still in the woods. Prime Minister Hamdok has been struggling to push through reforms in an attempt to secure foreign financing. So far, a cabinet reshuffle has happened, and the Sudanese central bank has sharply devalued the country's currency. However, a crippling shortage of basic goods continues to bite. Soaring inflation is also complicating matters for the current government. The landing of coronavirus is also shaping Sudan post-Bashir. In November 2020, thousands of Sudanese bade farewell to Sadiq al-Mahdi. Al-Mahdi was the first and last democratically elected Prime Minister of Sudan until Bashir deposed him in June 1989. As a caged Omar al-Bashir faces his fate, Sudan is yet to start thriving, but it is moving on. Wilkis Anyabwa, CGTN.
Africa has indeed felt the impact of relations with China across the continent. That's according to the chairperson of the Kenya-China Friendship Group of Parliament, Shakil Shabir. He said infrastructure development and the Belt and Road Initiative are among the benefits that African countries are enjoying, as China this year celebrates the 100th anniversary of the founding of the Chinese Communist Party. CGTN's Nick Mudimba had a conversation with Shakil Shabir.
I think, how do I see our relationship with the Kenya-China relationship, and specifically Africa, is that like all Kenyans, we have felt the initiative of the Belt and Road Initiative and the development of infrastructure in Africa over the last 15 or 20 years, and we have seen more effective end product by the Chinese who have come and given us aid without conditions and without modality. The Africa relationship with China has been varied in every country. Kenya, we have seen the Thika Highway, we have seen a railway that the last work on the railway was when my grandfather came to this country over 100 years ago. So we have not had a change of that railway system for that time. So we have now a new railway system. We have new roads. We have certain communication systems. And I think as much as we are saying that we are developing, we want to be able to do so on an equal footing. With our relationship with the rest of the world. In the history of this world, never has we seen any state remove over 100 million or majority of its rural urban population out of extreme poverty. So that brings in itself a potential within China that, for Kenya, gives us the potential of knowing that there is a more of a market in China for our goods and services and our tourism. Already we have started seeing Chinese tourists coming to Kenya. I've seen Chinese tourists going all over the world. I think the potential of our development is based upon the philosophy that we seem to have lost due to colonialization, because in Africa we used to share everything. The African tradition was that of sharing. The 100 years has been to us a very important linkage and a very important goal that has come to the performance of the country of China and our relationships with them. We would like to be very much part and parcel of the celebration of that 100 years of the Communist Party.
Tunisian authorities have inaugurated the Second Chance School in the capital Tunis. The school aims to train thousands of school dropouts in the North African country. Adnan Chouachi has more.
The Minister of Education pointed out that thousands of online applications for enrollment in the Second Chance School had been submitted. Tunisian authorities plan to reduce the number of school dropouts in the next 3 years.
This is a very important initiative. The Second Chance School will help the Education Department save school dropouts from the streets. The students are aged between 12 and 18 years. They can either return to the formal education system, join vocational training facilities, or launch their own projects.
The Education and Vocational Training Department have appointed qualified teachers and a competent staff to teach and manage the school.
Our objective is to prepare students for professional integration. A group of teachers, educational counselors and trainers, as well as psychologists, accompany the students to find their way and start a successful career.
Sirine lives in a neighborhood where many children have abundant education for personal, social or economic reasons. She views the Second Chance School as a life-changing experience.
I have been confused since I left school. I watched the news on television on the Second Chance School, then I registered and joined the adventure to change my life. Here, I can realize my dream by becoming a makeup artist.
Bilal is a learner who will graduate in 2 years after completing the Advanced Vocational Training Certificate.
I am proud of this experience because I'm learning new skills. I want to become a mechanic and open my own auto repair garage. This time, I will not leave my school without a diploma in hand.
According to a report on the situation of children in Tunisia, there are some 102,000 dropouts in the country. This study was conducted and published by the Observatory of Information, Training, Documentation and Studies on the Protection of the Rights of the Child at the Ministry of Women, Family, Children and Seniors. More than 1,200 early school leavers who have been outside the school system for at least a year have joined the Second Chance School in the capital city, Tunis. The Education and Vocational Training departments will inaugurate 3 additional schools in different cities across the country. Adnan Chouachi, CGTN, Tunis.
Your business news still ahead. Here's what's coming up. Why a potential $1 billion standoff looms over the recent Suez Canal blockage. And solar-powered water pumps transform lives in Uganda's rural areas.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
We start your business news in Egypt, where investigations over the cargo ship which blocked the Suez Canal for nearly a week are still ongoing. The Suez Canal Authority said it may seek compensation to the tune of $1 billion. The Ever Given is estimated to have some $3.5 billion worth of cargo. The head of the Suez Canal Authority, Lieutenant General Osama Rabai, warned that the ship would not be allowed to leave Egypt if the matter goes to court. Here's Adel Al-Makhri with more.
Egypt says the ship that blocked the Suez Canal last month will not leave the country until the investigations are over and the compensation agreement is reached. All of the Ever Given data logs, captain communication recordings, and mechanical instructions have been retrieved. Experts say the investigations are not designed to determine who is responsible. Rather, they're analyzing how the grounding happened.
However the investigations unfold, marine law states that the ship's captain is responsible. When the canal's guide boards the ship, he becomes part of the captain's crew. Therefore, the company owning the ship, and in turn the insurance companies it contracted, are going to pay the compensation. The investigation's purpose is learning what happened so as to avoid similar incidents in the future.
During the 6-day blockage, the canal lost nearly $15 million daily in transiting fees. The cost of the grounding extends to include tugboats, dredgers, and manpower used to float the ship.
There is also the rescue reward, which is a maritime custom. The Suez Canal team was extremely professional in the rescue mission. The ship was saved without any damage to its body or any malfunction, which is rare in such cases. The daily revenues of the Suez Canal are not only from the transiting ships, there are also additional services provided to ships. All of this is being calculated and negotiated with the insurers. No figure has been reached yet.
Litigation could be complex, though. The vessel is owned by a Japanese firm, operated by a Taiwanese shipper, flagged in Panama, and was heading to ports in the Netherlands. That could see the ship stay with its cargo for months if the dispute goes to international arbitration. Earlier, the chairman of the Suez Canal Authority, Osama Rabia, said compensations could go over $1 billion. Taking into consideration the financial losses and the cost Egypt paid for the rescue, experts believe the compensation will probably be much less. It's still going to be a decent amount. Expectation is it is going to be a 3-digit figure in millions of dollars. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
Uganda and Tanzania have signed agreements to kickstart the process of building a crude oil export pipeline. The over 1,400-kilometer pipeline will run from Hoima in western Uganda to the Indian Ocean port of Tanga in Tanzania. The pipeline project is the main prerequisite for the production of Uganda's crude oil resources. CGTN's Michael Baleke has that report.
The oil pipeline project, which is expected to cost $3.5 billion, will be the longest heated pipeline in the world. The project is expected to unlock between $15 and $20 billion into the economy. And the Tanzanian leader says the deal will strengthen partnership and cooperation between the two countries.
The project will yield revenues to both countries while creating short and long-term employment for both highly skilled and semi-skilled professionals, as well as casual laborers, thus addressing the unemployment challenge, especially among the youth.
Uganda discovered oil in 2006. The country has 6.5 billion barrels of proven reserves. However, it has taken the country 15 years to reach a deal with the oil investors. But President Museveni says the wait has been worthwhile since the entire region stands to benefit.
This pipeline project can be a core of bigger developments if the brothers in Congo and South Sudan choose to also use it for their oil. At the maximum, it can carry 230,000 barrels per day.
The falling global oil prices, as well as the recent disruptions caused by the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, have also been blamed for the slow progress. The two leaders also discussed the possibility of using the oil pipeline route to develop a parallel gas pipeline that will return liquefied natural gas produced by Tanzania to the Ugandan market. Uganda wants to use the gas to develop its iron ore deposits, but also promote it as an alternative source of cooking energy. The meeting in Kampala also touched on the plans to build a 60,000 barrels per day refinery that will process excess crude oil into finished products to be consumed by the local and regional markets. The date on when the actual groundbreaking of the pipeline project will take place is yet to be set. Michael Baleke, CGTN, Kampala, Uganda.
Capital importation to Nigeria plunged by almost 60% in 2020 as COVID-induced global disruptions restricted travel and hampered trade. Data from the National Bureau of Statistics shows capital inflows dropped to $9.7 billion last year, and that's compared to $24 billion received in 2019. The figure marks the lowest in 4 years. CGTN's Kelechi Emekalam has more from Abuja.
The latest report from the Bureau of Statistics shows that Nigeria received $9.68 billion from capital importation in 2020, representing a 59.6% dip compared to the $23.99 billion recorded in 2019. Among other factors responsible for the decline in foreign investment was the COVID-19 outbreak.
This decline was essentially from COVID-19 because production was not taking place. So if production is not taking place, you cannot have value, increase in value. Even the diaspora remittances even reduced. Nigeria's access to capital reduced. Even our internally generated revenues, as in from crude oil production.
Crippling economic activities and stifling investments also contributed to the decline in capital inflows.
The crude oil sales that could have shored up the supply of forex has also suffered 60% drop in crude oil sales and revenue. So that's a major knock-on effect of a drop in the capital importation.
Nigeria faced one of its worst recessions in 2016, and that was the last time the West African nation recorded such low capital importation at $5.12 billion. The country is just edging out of another recession blamed on COVID-19 and dwindling oil prices. It's dealt a heavy blow on the economy, discouraging foreign investors.
You know, we've had constant rise in our inflation, and they don't like that because it means that if your money is here, by the next 12 months and the inflation is 16%, the value of their money will decline by 16%. So they have to, a combination of all of that is that they have to repatriate their money back, make yourself attractive to foreign people, investors, and then show less policy upturns, which they don't like.
Economic observers have also faulted weak fiscal policies for the unstable economy and decline in capital importation. They expect government to work towards a more predictable investment environment, ensure the ease of doing business in the country, and project sustainable policies that would make Nigeria a choice destination for foreign investors. Kelechi Emekalam, CGTN Abuja, Nigeria.
In Uganda, many rural communities face challenges in getting water. Only 68% of rural villages have access to safe water sources, according to the Ministry of Water. Now, a non-profit organization is helping rural communities access clean and reliable water using solar-powered digital systems. Isabel Nakiria has more.
Christine Nachibuka now taps water with a swipe. She's using a digital system that involves loading credit on a token and passing it through a payment system to allow water to flow. Residents pay 2 cents for a 20-liter jerrycan of water, which they say is affordable.
They really helped us. We are no longer suffering. We don't even think about having to walk down the well to fetch water.
Christine's family and millions more live in Uganda's water-stressed areas. She says life was tough before water was brought close to her home.
Imagine we used to walk up this hill very early before we go to school every day, yet we would take 2 routes. Sometimes we ended up being late for school.
According to the Water Ministry, only 38% of the people in Christian's district of Sembabule have access to clean water. This water source has for years been used by both humans and animals. It's not only safe for drinking, but it's also far off. People have to walk over 2 kilometers to access it. The government drilled boreholes in the area, but many broke down. Water Campus, an NGO working to improve access to water in rural communities, is modernizing the broken boreholes. It's replacing hand pumps with solar-powered pumps and supplying cheap water closer to where people live.
We also use a solar-powered digital payment system so that people receive an individual token that they can load credit onto, so that at any time during the day or night they can come and collect water without having to disturb anyone to turn on a tap or have to travel far down to a hand pump.
The organization has built 3 water systems in 3 districts so far, each costing $30,000. The project leaders say the system is reliable and residents are assured of constant water supply throughout the year. The climate in Sembabule is semi-arid, meaning not much rain is received here. The community in Christian's village is lucky, but millions more still don't have access to clean and safe water. Isabel Nakiria, CGTN Sembabule, Uganda.
Time for a short break. Still ahead on the program. We take you to a rage room where South Africans go to vent their anger by destroying electronics.
The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Panata, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
Stressed out South Africans are flocking to take out their anger on TVs and other electronic appliances, and they're doing this at the recently opened Rage Room SA. Armed with a baseball bat, one is able to reduce electronic gear to unidentifiable pieces. Patrons of the facility say they often finish their sessions relaxed yet exhausted. CGTN's Yolisa Njamela has more.
People often go to rage rooms to have fun, to de-stress and basically break things. Rage Room SA is no different. While a meditation session may help relieve stress and tension, many South African locals are blowing off steam by smashing up discarded electronic devices. Baseball bats, sledgehammers, and other tools are used for the smashing process.
Where guys or ladies come and experience what we call destruction therapy, where you can book a package with us, come get a weapon of choice, baseball bat or sledgehammer, and you can break whatever's in the room. We get all our gadgets and objects for destruction from second-hand stores, electronic stores, and it's pretty much things that they can no longer fix that we purchase from them.
With frustration levels pushed to the limit by the COVID-19 pandemic, the lockdown, growing unemployment, and personnel issues, demolishing some appliances seem to be lifting the mood.
But at the exact time that you're finished with it, you'll be a little bit happier, a little bit stress-free, but it doesn't mean that whatever your problem was is going to be cured or gone. But it's definitely at the time the experience will relieve a little bit of stress. At the moment, everybody wants to come and try it here at the Rage Room. We're getting all walks of life coming, from CEOs to guys who don't even have jobs anymore. They're still coming, they're coming to try it out, and they're having fun. We're getting a great response at the moment.
We work in a very stressful and target-driven environment. So us being here, just to take a moment, reflect, If one wants to explode or shout, they can do it freely. And that few minutes of just hitting and breaking things, it really just takes a bit of stress. And definitely I'll be recommending this to the rest of the team members.
The establishment is quick to assert that these sessions must not be confused with professional therapist sessions.
We are not psychologists, and we're not selling ourselves as psychologists. We just as rage. Some people come here for fun, and some come here to release stress and other stuff.
Rage Room SA also allows people to bring their own gadgets to destroy. Yolisa Njomela for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Your sports news is still ahead on Africa Live. Coming up, 1970 Africa Cup of Nations champion Sudan make a return to the competition after a 10-year hiatus.